When you reach the age of 60 and beyond, a divine shift begins to take place within you. Life, in all its fullness and fury, has taught you what matters and what does not. You've spent decades building friendships, attending gatherings, listening to stories, and trying to keep up with the expectations of others. You've walked through seasons where being surrounded by people felt necessary, even vital. You needed someone to talk to, someone to validate your thoughts, someone to be a companion in the noise and the chaos of life. But now, at this stage in the journey, something inside you changes. It's not bitterness, it's not wariness, it's wisdom. A calm, sacred wisdom that begins to whisper truths the younger version of you would have ignored. And one of those truths is this: you begin to understand the difference between companionship and clarity. You realize that not all company is comfort. Not every conversation leads to peace. Not every friend is food for the soul. You've had people sit beside you and still felt lonely. You've had long talks that left you drained. You've had friends you had to constantly entertain, explain, or convince. And now, your soul craves something different. You no longer chase voices, you seek stillness. You no longer hunger for laughter in the room. You hunger for truth in your spirit. It's not that you hate people. It's not that you've become cold or withdrawn. It's that your spirit has grown. Your heart has matured. You've seen what shallow friendship costs. You've learned that some friendships only survive when you suppress parts of yourself. Some people only stay close when you stay small. And now, you refuse to shrink. You refuse to compromise your clarity just to feel companionship, because now you understand it's better to sit alone in truth than to sit surrounded in confusion. You wake up in the morning and you no longer think, who can I talk to today? Instead, you find peace in simply being. You open the window, let the breeze in, feel the sunlight on your face, and you know, deep in your soul, you are not alone. You no longer need a friend to tell you it's a good day. You can hear the Spirit say it through the birdsong. You can see it in the quiet motion of the leaves. You can feel it in the rhythm of your own breathing. You don't need chatter, you need presence. And you have learned to find that presence in the stillness, in the silence, in the sacred. You also start to realize that the world does not define connection the way you do now. The world says the more friends, the better. But you've learned that many friends doesn't mean much if your soul is crowded. Too many opinions, too many distractions, too many people who want access to your time but not to your truth. So you pull back, not out of pride, but out of preservation. You protect your peace, not because you're antisocial, but because your peace has become your sanctuary. You have nothing to prove. You've lived long enough to know that those who are meant to walk with you in this season will walk in step with your truth. You no longer initiate empty conversations. You no longer force connections that cost you clarity. And in that sacred detachment, you find something unexpected: freedom. The freedom to think clearly, the freedom to feel deeply, the freedom to hear from heaven without interference. Because the truth is, at this age, you don't need more hands holding yours. You need more heaven holding your heart. You don't need to be surrounded. You need to be settled. Settled in who you are. Settled in where you're going. Settled in the knowledge that clarity is better than company and truth is better than talk. You have chosen what cannot be taken from you. The quiet confidence of a soul that has outgrown the need for noise. There is a holy transformation that unfolds as the years pass and you cross into your 60s and beyond. It doesn't arrive all at once. It comes quietly, like the rising sun through a fog window. Your bones begin to slow, your priorities begin to shift, and your spirit begins to awaken in ways it never did before. In your youth, your friendships defined you. You leaned on others for strength, for laughter, for identity, for direction. You needed someone to talk to, someone to walk with, someone to validate your choices. And that was understandable. Life was loud, fast, and uncertain. But as the pace of life changes, something far deeper begins to take root. Your heart no longer reaches outward first, it reaches upward. You begin to experience a depth of communion, a nearness, an intimacy with God that no human friendship could ever replace. Where people used to be your comfort, Now his presence becomes your constant. Where once you relied on others to steady your emotions, now you find stability in his still voice. You don't wake up wondering who to call or who to lean on. You rise with the awareness that you are already accompanied by the one who has walked with you every step of your life, even when you didn't notice. The longer you live, the more you realize that people, no matter how well-meaning, are limited. They can love you, yes. They can walk with you for a season. They can share your burdens, but they can also fail you. They can misunderstand you. They can disappear when you need them most. They can misjudge your heart, question your decisions, and sometimes hurt you without meaning to. You don't hold it against them anymore. You just understand now. You've matured beyond blame. You've grown into the realization that no person can be your everything. That role belongs to God alone. And now that you see it, you no longer chase what cannot satisfy. You don't need a crowd to feel seen. You don't need approval to feel worthy. You don't need a table full of friends to feel whole. You sit in the quiet in your room, maybe with a worn Bible on your lap, and tears fill your eyes, not from loneliness, but from gratitude. Gratitude that you've found the friend who never leaves, the counselor who never grows weary, the presence that doesn't wait to be invited, but dwells with you always. He was there when others walked away. He was there when your heart broke and no one noticed. He was there when you smiled in public but cried in private. He was there in the hospital room, in the funeral hall, in the lonely car rides, in the nights when sleep wouldn't come. And now, after all these years, you realize he wasn't just present. He was preparing you. He was deepening you, drawing you closer, training your ears to hear him more clearly, teaching you that divine fellowship far outweighs human connection. And so you no longer chase after fleeting companionship. You're not bitter. You're not closed off. You simply understand now that the richest friendship is the one between your soul and your Savior. When you walk through the garden, you talk to him. When you rise in the morning, you acknowledge him. When fears try to creep in, you rest in him. He is not an accessory to your life. He is the anchor. You've come to see that this season of life isn't about social circles. It's about spiritual roots. It's not about being surrounded. It's about being sustained. And you are sustained by the one who doesn't get bored with your stories, who doesn't forget your needs, who doesn't withhold love when you fall short. His love is steady. His voice is sure. His presence is enough. And in that enoughness, you found what the world cannot give and what friends cannot fulfill, a relationship that doesn't require explanation, performance, or perfection, only your heart. ChatGPT setting there comes a sacred turning point in life when the applause of others no longer moves you the way it once did. When you're younger, you want to be liked. You want to be seen. You want to be invited, included, appreciated. You want your name to be known and your presence to be felt. You surround yourself with people not just you enjoy them, but because in some way they affirm your existence. They become mirrors reflecting back your worth. You adjust your words to avoid offending. You laugh at jokes that don't sit right in your spirit. You go to gatherings that leave you tired, all for the sake of popularity, all to keep the peace with people, while your soul quietly breaks on the inside. But as you age, as the weight of experience settles upon your shoulders, a shift takes place. You no longer see peace as something soft or passive or secondary. You begin to see it as essential, holy, powerful. You learn that peace is not just the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of alignment. When your mind, your heart, was the chief, and your spirit come into agreement with what is true, with what is right, with what is eternal. And once you've tasted that kind of peace, you stop negotiating it for anything, especially not for the fragile approval of people. You discover that popularity is loud, but peace is deep. Popularity is temporary. It rides the winds of opinion. One moment, they cheer you. The next, they question you. One day, you're invited everywhere. The next, you're forgotten. It's a roller coaster you no longer care to ride. You realize that being in everyone's circle isn't worth losing your center. That having your phone full of contacts means nothing if your heart is full of unrest. That being known by many doesn't matter if you're not at peace with yourself and your God. And so you begin to step back. Not in anger was the chief, but in wisdom. You don't argue, you don't explain, you simply let go. You let go of relationships that demand your peace as payment. You let go of conversations that leave your soul uneasy. You let go of people who only love you when you're useful, when you agree, when you entertain. And you step into solitude, not with sadness, but with sacred confidence. Because now you understand the greatest wealth you can possess in this season is a peaceful heart. You stop looking for your worth in who shows up. You stop measuring your value by who still calls or who remembers your birthday. You don't need a crowd to feel validated anymore. Your value was never in your visibility. Your worth was never in the number of friends, but in the depth of your identity. And now you are rooted. You are grounded. You are held by something eternal, something unshakable. You find yourself in joy at mornings with a cup of tea more than noisy dinners full of small talk. You find joy in hearing the birds, watching the sky, feeling the wind on your skin. You sit alone and realize you are not lacking, you are not missing out. You are in possession of something far richer than popularity. You have peace, the kind of peace that doesn't depend on who agrees with you. The kind of peace that doesn't rise or fall with people's opinions. The kind of peace that stays. And now that peace becomes your compass. It tells you where to go and where not to go. It warns you when the room is wrong for you. It comforts you when you walk alone. I was the chief. And more than that, it reminds you that walking alone with peace is better than walking with a crowd and feeling divided inside. You've chosen what lasts. You've chosen what matters. And you've discovered that in the stillness, in the quiet, in the absence of popularity, there is a presence, holy, comforting, faithful, that brings rest to your soul. There is a road that few choose to walk, not because it is hidden, which was the chief, but because it is narrow. It is not crowded, not filled with laughter and noise, not paved with easy steps and simple decisions. This is the road of wisdom. And as you grow older, as you step beyond the age of 60, you begin to realize that this path, though quiet and sometimes lonely, is the one your soul was always meant to follow. The further you walk it, the more you begin to see how rare it is to find others walking beside you, not because they've abandoned you, but because most people are not ready for the silence that wisdom demands. When you were younger, the sound of many voices comforted you. You welcomed opinions, suggestions, even correction from friends. You leaned on others because your own voice wasn't fully formed. But with time, with trials, with heartbreak, with deep reflection, you began to see things differently. You began to realize that wisdom does not scream. It whispers. And to hear it, you have to step away from the crowd, away from the opinions, away from the noise. You have to be willing to be misunderstood. You have to be willing to say no when everyone else says yes. You have to make decisions not based on popularity, but on truth. Zacchaeus with the chief, and that's when the crowd begins to thin. You notice that people stop calling, not because they hate you, but because your truth unsettles their comfort. You're not playing the games anymore. You're not entertaining gossip, which was the chief. You're not laughing at what grieves your spirit. You've changed not because you're cold, but because you've become clear. And clarity has a price. It often comes with distance. But that distance is sacred. It's where discernment grows. It's where your ears tune into the voice of the Spirit like never before. It's where you start to see through the surface of things. Through words, through appearances, through masks. And what you see is not always pretty. You see the motives, the manipulation, the shallow intentions. You see the emptiness in what used to impress you. You see how easily people follow crowds rather than convictions. And that vision, that insight, that depth, it separates you. Not because you want to be above anyone, but because you can no longer live below your calling. And so you walk alone, not in sadness, but in strength, not in arrogance, but in awareness. You've been entrusted with a vision, with a purpose, with a voice that was not made to echo the crowd, but to speak something higher. And you can't do that if you're constantly surrounded. You can't do that if you're always explaining, always justifying, always adjusting your truth to fit in. So you embrace the solitude, you embrace the quiet, you embrace the fact that most people won't understand your decisions. And that's okay, because which was the path of wisdom has never been about comfort. It's been about conviction. It's been about obedience. It's been about walking forward when others stand still, about holding to what's eternal while others cling to what is fleeting. You've learned that wisdom doesn't demand agreement. It demands alignment. It requires you to choose what is right, even when it's not received. It calls you to stand firm, even when it's not celebrated. You've stopped waiting for others to approve your walk. You don't need them to agree. You just need to be faithful to what you know deep down is true. And that faithfulness, that integrity, that depth, it comes with a cost. But oh, the reward, the peace, the strength, clarity, the assurance that while the road may be narrow, it is also holy. And though you may walk it alone in the eyes of the world, you are never truly alone. Wisdom walks with you. Truth walks with you. And the one who called you to this road walks with you every step of the way.